Hello, everybody. Back with another Fantasy Forecheck brought to you by the all-new Ram 1500 Sport. I'm Andy McNamara alongside Nick Alberga. That sweet stash, man.
You love it,
rocking
man.
it, loving it. And you're going to love our fantasy tips today. We will take you through waiver wire pickups, sleepers, and how to win some money in the Ram Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool a little bit later on. Let's get to some of the injuries are every week. Every week. And they're big names, too, Nick. Like Sidney Crosby, come on.
Yeah, fortunately up the middle, though, Andy. I mean, there is a lot of depth in fantasy hockey. First and foremost, I think it's fair to underline and underscore Evgeny Malkin. Without Sidney Crosby in the lineup, he seems to dominate, and that continued again on Saturday night in that 6-1 win against the Maple Leafs, where he had 1-1. But career now, Evgeny Malkin without Crosby, 123 games, 67 goals, 97 assists, 163 points. So I think there's a potential to sort of buy on Evgeny Malkin. I mean, it's sort of funny to say, but I think if he's going to go off, now is going to be the time without 87 in the lineup. In-house, Jarrod Mccann, who we've pimped a lot so far this season, 22% ownership. I think you have a look at him. And again, to get back full circle, there's a lot of depth in fantasy hockey at the center ice position. Dylan Strobe, who you're going to talk about in moments on Chicago's ripping it up. Nico Hischier's another look with New Jersey. Adam Henrique's had a really, really solid start for the Anaheim Ducks. Eric Staal with Minnesota. Marty Neches, who I'll talk about momentarily too.
Right, and you're never going to replace the Sidney Crosby, but you're right, there is that depth there. How about Torrey Krug?
Yeah, Torrey Krug, I mean, that's a big-time loss for the Boston Bruins, and it's sort of interesting to see their ideology with Krug on the shelf. It's actually Matt Grzelcyk who has stepped into that pivot role on the back end to go with the big boys on PP1. Also of note, too, in Boston, Patrice Bergeron missed that game on Saturday night against Washington with a lower body injury. I think it's load management. I'm no doctor. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes there?
But Kawhi.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. He looked fine against the Maple Leafs on Friday night. So I think when you look at Boston, Matt Grzelcyk's a guy, again, I'm going to talk about momentarily, and a defenseman I would surely pick up right now. And I think I'd rather Grzelcyk at this point in time than Charlie McAvoy in Boston.
Okay. And now you look at Tampa Bay Lightning. They're exploding. And also the Dallas Stars on a hot streak. So a couple teams that maybe not the best beginning to the season, but are coming on.
Well, it's the one thing, you know, one of the many things we stressed early in this season in fantasy hockey is don't get too high, don't get too low. Like Dallas was just pitiful out of the gates. They really, really struggled. And now you look at the last 12 games, they're 10-1-1 and really finding their groove offensively. Tampa in the same conversation. We could start with the Lightning. I think certainly in DFS and daily plays, you want to just get as much depth in Tampa as possible because that team is just scoring plenty of goals right now. Yanni Gord's on fire, 21% ownership. Alex Killorn at 8%. Anthony Cirelli at 5%. And Patrick Maroon has looked outstanding the last couple of weeks. So I think if you're looking, you know, on the waiver wire for some DFS pickups and guys on a daily pickup, I think you have to look at Tampa because they're scoring like crazy right now. And you look at Dallas, like Joe Pavelski has really struggled. That continues, demoted to line 4 over the weekend. That's not obviously going to last, but they got a new top 6. Jim Montgomery, their head coach, called them out. It seems like everybody named Jim is calling out players in the last year with that organization. But their top 6 as it constitutes right now, Radulov. How about Justin Dowling and that story? His mom missing his first NHL goal because she was grabbing a beverage. Scores another beauty. He loves the toe drag, by the way, this Dowling. Corey Perry on that top line. Jamie Benn finally snaps the long drought of not scoring. Jason Dickinson's been a great story. And the fascinating thing when you look at Dowling and Dickinson, 0% ownership in Yahoo Hockey.
0.
So clearly I'm the only dude talking about them.
Hey, well, you know what? Not for long, because now people are going to be picking him up. Exactly. Now you look at in fantasy hockey, the teams that play 4-game weeks are key to try to hone in on for the Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool, season long, and then you have more opportunities in DFS as well. Now we have 5 teams there. The good news is you don't have the 1 or 2 team weeks. Nobody. So everyone's at least playing 3 games or more.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is unconventional because every week we do come on this program and say, hey, like these are the teams to stay away from because they only have 2-game schedules. But, you know, we have the 5 teams, which we'll mention right now, in the form of Arizona, Carolina, Detroit, Edmonton, and Florida, who have those 4-game weeks.
Pretty great Edmonton, too. Like you got extra Connor McDavid. I wonder who my
Ram-capable pick is this week, as we stressed every week. And, you know, the good thing is everybody else plays 3 times, so you're going to get your, you know, plenty of your action from your key superstars on your team.
There's no black hole this week you got to avoid. Yeah.
Exactly. So we'll look at some of the rosters and guys to pick apart on the various rosters. We'll start with Arizona. Lawson Krause in the third line is the guy I'm looking at this week. He's got Phil Kessel exposure. Rick Talk is trying to spread the wealth. I know last week we were talking about Kessel being on that top line.
Right.
I don't know if it's demotion. I think most coaches are looking to spread the wealth. Connor Garland's another guy I would look at in terms of, the Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. You want to look at the crease situation in Arizona. Phil Kessel, Clayton Keller's another look. Carolina, Ryan Dzingel at 18%. Marty Neches, 4% ownership. I'm going to talk about him momentarily. He's ripping it up, and a guy you probably don't even think about. Detroit, Robbie Fabry's been outstanding. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. Just the change of scenery can do so much for a player. And Andreas Athanasiou, you should look to own this guy as quickly as possible. I thought he was outstanding over the weekend in San Jose, and that will continue. Edmonton's so interesting because there's nobody really you can pick up right now in terms of Yahoo, because it's McDavid, Draisaitl, even James Neal, who I talked about in my 20 thoughts this week. He's droppable at this point in time. He's not even scoring on the power play. And then the Florida Panthers, I think you want to look at Frank Vatrano and Brett Conley as some depth pickups, certainly to manipulate the schedule here.
Let's get to our waiver wire pickups for the week. We'll take you through a forward, a defender, and a goaltender. Who's your forward to pick up?
Marty Neches. As I mentioned on the Carolina Hurricanes, this guy is a pedigree of a former first-round pick, as you know. Last year, I thought they did the right thing. It was very Mark Scheifele-esque, where they let him season more in the minors. And I know Mark Scheifele spent a lot of time in the OHL, and people wondered, when's this kid going to come? Well, he's one of the best players on this planet right now for the Winnipeg Jets, as we all know. I think Neches, to an extent, is that type of player with the pedigree, the skill set, and right now we're seeing it. And you look at Carolina, the depth is uncanny with that organization, and Rod Brind'Amour, an excellent coach. You look at Neches, dual eligibility here with center and right wing. Last 8 games, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points, 1 power play point, 1 game-winning goal. He's really doing everything on that third line right now with Nino Niederreiter and Lucas Wallmark. Who do you got?
Dylan Strome.
I love it.
I'm going Dylan Strome, and his availability is shrinking by the minute. By the time this airs, he started, it was 30%, 35, 37, 39, 40% ownership in Yahoo leagues. Keeps going up. His stretch of last 5 games has been sensational. And this is somebody for the Chicago Blackhawks. Sometimes you overlook the bad teams, but you cannot ignore Dylan Strome. And it comes down to that depth we talked about at center that you can grab off of waivers right now. So you look at the last 5, and that top line, it's so much who you play with, Nick, right?
Yeah.
Kane and DeBrincat, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. 9 points in the last 5 games for Dylan Strome.
1 goal, 8 assists.
And Patrick Kane is on a different planet right now. He's playing with his best friend, Alex DeBrincat. Like, we're seeing the Dylan Strome last year who came over from Arizona. It was a slow start. You're totally right on that front. I think in terms of the back end, and another name you want to throw into the fire when it comes to possible replacement for Torrey Krug at this point in time is Adam Fox. We all know the backstory there. Doesn't want to sign with the aforementioned Carolina Hurricanes, elects to go to free agency. It was Carolina to Calgary, and then, that whole conundrum and that whole situation, he ends up as a New York Ranger. And the last couple of games, we really started to see why Adam Fox was highly touted. Last 7 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. And the important factor, he's on PP1, and it's not Tony DeAngelo or Jacob Trouba. The exposure alone to the top power play unit, and it's crazy to say Oilers fans will sort of sigh at this, but Ryan Strome, another Strome brother, has just been outstanding. I can't wait for Matt Strome to hit the NHL with Philadelphia. Artemi Panarin's been incredible for the New York Rangers the last little while, so I definitely got to talk about Adam Fox, and he's very ownable right now, I would say, in fantasy circles.
Oh, sure. You can pop him in for DFS as well, right? Check the matchup. Yeah. I'll go, continuing with the defenseman, I'm going back to the Blackhawks, going back to Chicago, Calvin DeHaan. And when it comes to fantasy, you don't have to necessarily light up the score sheet to be fantasy relevant. Calvin DeHaan owning just 10% of Yahoo League. So unlike Strome, who's skyrocketing, he's staying right around that 10% mark. And you got to go grab him right now because it's about the extra secondary fantasy categories, block shots, plus, minus, and he's averaging about a 3-hit-a-game pace going over from last season. So he's getting at least 11.7 fantasy points in each of his past 4 games. He's a great value play for DFS. And if you need depth in the back end, again, Calvin DeHaan, ride it while you can. And he gives you that little bit of insurance if you get an injury on defense.
An absolute stat stuff, and the best thing about Calvin DeHaan, I don't know if you saw this week, what were his thoughts on analytics. read into that if you know what I'm saying. Goaltending-wise, I'll go first, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the well with Jonathan Quick. The pedigree's there. This guy is unbelievable, a future Hall of Famer in my opinion. Had a dreadful October, and we wondered if he had any game left. Well, you look at his November numbers, Andy, 3-2-0. 2.44, 914. So it's a bit risky because LA is not great defensively, we'll put it. They're a work in progress for sure, but Jonathan Quick, certainly I think if you need goaltending, maybe you look at Quick right now. I
like to find those under the radar plays on bad teams.
Yeah.
Well, Ottawa Senators, check. Yeah. Anders Nilson, and if you take away that Remembrance Day debacle, Nilson has been tremendous overall for the Senators. And when you look at what he's done, 2.76 goals against, and that's including that dud on November 11th. 925 save percentage, and has won 3 of his last 4. Obviously, you don't have him as your number 1 goaltender, but as a number 2, and on DFS specific matchup nights, you can pop him in, and he is producing.
Yeah, no, I think spot starts are important. I know the last couple days I've utilized that myself.
Yeah.
Yahoo Fantasy Sports. I think other names you want to look at, Linus Ullmark with the Buffalo Sabres. Carter Hutton's been really struggling as of late. The Sabres finally win a game. Jack Eichel scores 4 goals. Anton Khudobin's another sneaky look in Dallas, getting a lot of starts as of late. The Stars looking for victories, and they seem to have found the magic elixir of defensive structure with offensive capabilities. So certainly I think when you look at the market, you wonder, hey, where am I going to get the saves? Where am I going to get the goaltending? If you look hard enough, you'll find them, Andy.
All right, Nick, it's that time of the week, baby. It's that time to win you some money, people. The Ram Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. You go to fantasy.sportsnet.ca and enter. Free to do so. You can win your share of $50,000 in prizes, $1,000 weekly prizes, and a whole bunch of more prizes throughout the whole season. It's a lot of fun. And this whole show, the Fantasy Forecheck, is brought to you by the Canadian exclusive Ram 1500 Sport. This full-size pickup gives Canadians exceptional capability under the hood, advanced technology inside, and impeccable styling throughout. It's the Ram 1500 Sport, and it's designed for life in the North. And by the way, one of the prizes, you can win one of those 1,500 sports too. How about that?
It's pretty damn
pretty
sweet.
Good.
And I will say too, Design for Life is Connor McDavid. That's where we're starting here.
Yes, absolutely.
The Ram capable pick situation. Got to go with Connor McDavid. I've been riding, new strategy the last couple weeks and doing a combo stack, Draisaitl and McDavid. You can't go wrong, especially in 4-game weeks, as we discussed with Edmonton. Like it's easy money in my opinion.
Yeah, and the whole pool is you have to pick 6 forwards, 4 defensemen, 2 goalies, and then you slap a Ram capable tag on 1 from each position group, and that doubles up your points. So obviously, if you're looking at
score a lot.
Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl over the past 4 games, 13 points each, you double that.
Math, too.
So, that's pretty good. Yeah. That's pretty good. Now, what you also have to do, though, is work all that into a 30-point system. So, McDavid and Draisaitl are worth 4 each, so you have to balance that out. Yeah. And that's all part of it. I went with Leon Draisaitl, slightly less ownership on the Ram Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. So, I just went with a little, I won't call it contrarian because they're both very popular, but a little bit less. You can't go wrong. Who's your back end capable?
Well, even, to add to, everybody's talking about Connor McDavid. I want to talk, like Leon Draisaitl's having an impeccable year and leads the league in points, and nobody's talking about him because Connor McDavid's Connor McDavid. As for your question, I'll answer with Dougie Hamilton, a guy you don't normally look at, has had an impeccable start to this season offensively for the Carolina Hurricanes. And certainly you look at the Canes, one of those 4-game weeks, I think you'd be foolish not to look at a guy like Dougie Hamilton right now. It's easy to go John Carlson, but Dougie Hamilton's in the top 5 in terms of scoring right now for defensemen.
And that's also what you want to take into mind. You don't want to shy away from stars when you're putting a Ram-capable tag, but also you want to try to be a little different. Everyone's going John Carlson, so how about Colorado Avalanche, Cole Makar? A tear, been on a tear since November 7th, 4 goals, 6 assists, and he's averaging 6.34 fantasy points a night for a defenseman. Yeah. And I'm loving the schedule this week. Calgary, Minnesota, and Toronto. Could always go with Carlson. Give me some Cole Makar, man.
Yeah, Cale Makar, I mean, he's just unbelievable. 22 points in 20 games. It just makes no sense the way him and McKinnon are dragging that team along right now with no Landeskog, no Rantanen. It's been an unbelievable story there. In between the pipes, I'm going to go with Sergei Bobrovsky, and I sort of led my 20 thoughts this past week with a look at the 2016 free agent class, the UFA class, and how pitiful some of those contracts have turned out. I know there's been some angry, maybe that's not the right word, agitated fans in Sunrise over the play of Sergei Bobrovsky early on. Is he worth $10 million a season? Who really knows? But a 4-game week for the Florida Panthers. I still got to give Bobrovsky the benefit of the doubt. In terms of goalies, it's pretty early. We're only in mid-November here, so I got to give him way more starts to see what he truly has. So I'm going to Bobrovsky this week, although he's worth 4 points in a 30-point cap league here.
And I will go back to the Mikko Koskinen train with the Oilers. I've been on it multiple times this year. I still think he's not getting enough attention with all the Connor McDavid and Draisaitl chatter, but he's had a great year. And a 4-game week for the Oilers, like we said, there's one back-to-back, so you expect him to play at least 3, so he's going to have that nice schedule. And, okay, so the Oilers fell apart in the third period Saturday. We're grossly outshot to hand Koskinen the loss, but the guy's got 7 wins on the year, a 2.16 goals against, so come on.
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, Dave Tippett's so fascinating, and we knew this was coming. I mean, they hinted at it. I talked to Ken Holland, the GM of the Oilers before the season, said the same thing about timeshare in between the pipes, and we're seeing it so far. And the crazy thing is, like, Koskinen or Smith can come off a shutout or a 6-1 victory, and they'll go to the other netminder. Like, it really, you know, they're not deviating from their plan that they have in place, so I think you're going to see a fair share of both these guys this week.
And it's somebody, again, that with Koskinen, you can slot him into your season-long league as your second goaltender, and you're going to feel great. And then, of course, DFS-wise, matchup specific.
Yeah, and I understand from a perspective that it is the Oilers. You're waiting for that boom, you know, that punchline. But Dave Tippett is a defensive stalwart, and I think the Oilers, to note, are really, really tuned in defensively right now. So don't be afraid to go to their netminders.
Also, don't be afraid to hit us up on Twitter at AndyMC81, at The Golden Muzzy. Let us know what you think of our picks. You have any fantasy hockey questions? Hit us up. That'll do it for the Ram Fantasy Forecheck here on Sportsnet.